This Week in Startups is brought to you by Rippling, the world's first way for businesses to manage their HR and IT in one system. For an easier way to onboard and supercharge new employees, go to rippling.com/twist and get 20% off. Pilot takes care of your bookkeeping from start to finish so you can focus 100% on making your business succeed. Go to pilot.com/twist for 20% off your first 6 months of Pilot Core. And Carta. Simplify how you manage equity with Carta. To get 20% off Carta's cap table software and 409A valuations, go to carta.com/twist.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and today on the program, we're going to cover one of the most important topics in Silicon Valley today, the topic of hypergrowth, speed, velocity, growing startups super fast, which happens these days for a number of reasons. One is globalization. The second is there's a lot of tools out there to quickly market your product to everybody. It's known as virality or Facebook, Instagram, Google, YouTube. Products and services that are good can get really popular really fast. And we've seen this happen over and over and over again in Silicon Valley. Whether it's Lyft and Uber and Airbnb or Google and Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram, we have a high growth culture here in Silicon Valley, hypergrowth and scale. This is what everybody's going for. And today on the program, I have Ariel Cohen with us. He is the co-founder and CEO of TripActions, which has been growing at a bonkers pace. According to the data I have here, Ariel, 6x year over year, 600% growth in terms of revenue. 20% month-over-month growth, which is just bonkers as well. And you've gone from 100 to 700 employees in the past year and recently raised a mountain of capital, $154 million in a Series C from none other than Andreessen Horowitz, which some people do say is the firm that drove this hypergrowth, which is a double-edged sword. Obviously, they've had some of the highest profile failures from going too fast. Fab.com, Klinkle, Quirky, and Zenefits. I was an investor in that last one, which is still going. But they have been known for giving, and the criticism of Andreessen Horowitz has been giving too much money and pushing founders to go too fast. Welcome to the program. And let me just ask it here, is going from 100 to 700 employees, is this a good idea? And how did you do it? Because I think that's adding, maybe if it's during business days, 3 people a day. How does one do that?
Yeah.
And welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for having me. Obviously, very excited to be here. And just, to jump into the growth question, we are not really looking at this. My co-founder and I started TripActions to build a long-lasting business. That was our goal. It's actually our second startup together. So obviously a lot of learning from our past. And the way that we look at growth is if we can bring TripActions, which we think that it's great, to as many people as we can, as fast as we can, we are achieving something. We are basically achieving our mission. So the question that we are usually asking around growth, we are looking at 2 metrics. Do we have customers or users churn? And do we have employees leaving us, right? Those are the 2 things that we keep asking.
Customers churning means they quit the product.
They stopped using us.
And employees leaving means there's either a better opportunity or they don't like working and coming to your office every day. Those are really good indicators, I suppose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there is also the gut feel, right? You walk in the office, do you feel that we are really trying to bring mission-driven people. It's something that is really, really important for me, for my co-founder, and therefore the entire company.
Yeah.
And I think that as you bring mission-driven people, and you insist on doing that, you solve for a lot of the problems that you can have while growing so fast from a culture perspective.
And TripActions, so people understand, is an enterprise service to book business travel in an organized fashion. So as opposed to everybody in the company just going on whatever platform, I guess, Kayak or Google Flights is really good now. Instead of everybody just freelancing it and buying stuff willy-nilly, you organize that and all the rules for travel inside of an organization and centralize that. Almost like a what they used to call those people who would a travel agent.
Yeah.
Like a travel agent.
Yeah.
There was actually a department at Sony, I remember, like the travel department. So is that how you describe it? How do you describe what TripActions does for a company?
First of all, sometimes we do call ourselves a travel agent in your pocket.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you came up with a travel agent. But if I'm taking a step back, corporations today are managing travel, and usually they're going to use a combination of Concur and a travel agency such as American Express, Carlson Wagonlit, and so on. So they're rarely going to a Kayak or Google to book their trips. They are managing travel. They've been managing travel with the tools that users actually don't like. And with services that users don't like. So what they're getting is a lot of noise. There is even a term in the industry, going rogue, which means you find an excuse to book outside the program. So what we did, we basically said, and we brought it from our own experience. Both of us were road warriors, people that travel a lot. And what we did, we basically said, if we're going to focus on a solution that users, corporate travelers will really like, then you'll achieve adoption. Therefore, the corporates will achieve everything that they want, which is duty of care, which is to know where your employees are in its policy and knowing how much to spend and so on. So we really focused on the users here, and that's the difference from the other solutions that are out there.
When did you first realize that things were starting to go fast? Because if I remember correctly, because I had read about the company and I thought, oh, that's a nice idea. Yeah, sure. Enterprise software kind of to manage all this. Do you consider yourselves enterprise software or a marketplace?
We are more of a B2B2C, but eventually we are selling to CFOs. So we go and sign an agreement in a B2B fashion with CFOs, but we make money through usage. So you have to use us for us to make money.
Got it.
And therefore the user is very important in this case.
So if they don't, you get a commission on what they're booking, not just a flat SaaS fee.
We're basically getting $25 per trip, which is a booking fee, and it's all in, and that's how we make our money.
When did you first realize it was starting to get this very fast velocity? Because you raised like $14 million in the Series A, like 2 years ago?
Yeah, we've been running for 4 years now. So actually, we've just celebrated our 4th year anniversary.
So you became a unicorn in 4 years.
Yeah.
The only companies I know that went faster than that were Uber and Slack.
Yeah, in B2B for sure, there are not a lot.
There's not a lot.
Yeah.
Slack and Yammer I think took 5.
Yeah.
I know Slack took like 2 or 3.
Right.
So you're right behind Slack and probably ahead of Yammer. Those were the fastest growing.
Which gets back to the usage, right? Yeah. I think that when you build a product, I'm originally a product guy.
Yeah.
And I think that product matters. And I think that if you build products that people really, really, really like, even in B2B, you'll grow fast. And to your question, when we've realized, interestingly enough, really, really, really early. So, on our first 6 months when we were still developing the product, I went and started to sell an alpha. Hey, can you use us for an alpha? And, I thought that it will take us very long time to find customers because it's B2B and it's alpha. And who are you? And why would I ask my employees to book their travel through you? Every time after I've met CFOs, they ask me, can we start tomorrow? Every time. So then we accelerated everything in terms of release and coming to market really, really fast. We knew back then that we're going to go really, really fast.
And was it just there was a vacuum in the market for these controls and like an easier system and everybody was going rogue? Or the other incumbents, their software sucked?
It's a combination of things. First of all, it's something that happened generally in the market. If you think you've mentioned the Lyft earlier.
Yeah.
If you think about an app like Lyft, it was designed to solve a problem for you right now, right? And you can do that because of the obviously mobile platform, but also from the ability to really personalize everything, to collect ambient data about you and to really present it in a relevant way. If you bring these concepts to the corporate world, you're basically creating productivity on steroids. And when it comes to business travel, the alternative was developed anywhere between the 70s and the 90s of the previous century. So it's a combination of you're competing with fairly old technology And we are bringing the cutting edge capabilities that you can bring today by personalize everything for you.
All right, when we get back from this quick break, I want to know about the incumbents, because my understanding was it was incredibly hard to operate in travel because there are the kayaks, the Expedia,
Right.
and now Google seems to be taking over the planet when it comes to travel. And I can't believe how good Google Flights is. And I didn't even know that existed 2 years ago, and now it seems to be my default. I want to know how you were able to manage all those giant incumbents and carve a niche for yourself when we get back on This Week in Startups. Every minute you spend updating employee data and systems is a minute you're not spending on your startup, your core job, building your product or service to deploy in the world. You don't want to have to waste all this time on HR and IT and all this stuff that you need to do when you onboard a new team member. Well, Rippling, Rippling, can help you manage all of your HR as well as all of your IT in one seamless product. That means you can get payroll, health insurance, compliance, 401k, all that's going to be done. But also all the IT suffering and pain that we all go through. You can instantly order the computer for this employee, create their user accounts across all of your systems, whether it's Gmail, GitHub, Slack, and then you give them a simple single sign-on for all their apps with one click. How amazing is that? Onboarding done right with Rippling, and you can manage all of this in one place with a few clicks. We use it at Inside, and we love it. Rippling has scaled our whole remote team at just a click of a button. I have dozens of writers at Inside and a dozen staff members. And you know what? You have to get HR right. It's table stakes. And you have to get all this IT stuff right. But we're a resource-constrained startup at Inside.com. We use Rippling. They make it so easy that we can scale gracefully and effortlessly with Rippling. So here is your call to action, rippling.com/twist, and you will get 20% off. So if you're looking for that easy way to onboard and supercharge new employees, I want you to go to rippling.com/twist and get 20% off. Thanks so much for supporting independent media like This Week in Startups. Speaking of which, let's get back to this amazing episode. All right, welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest is Ariel Cohen. He is the co-founder and CEO of TripActions, which he started back in 2015.
Yes.
And it's a unicorn already, growing at an alarming 6x year over year. That's pretty amazing. And from 100 to 700 employees in the past year, which is mind-blowing. I mean, how many people work in HR? Do you have everybody start every Monday? Just 10 people start?
It's actually 70 a month. So we are adding 70 people a month globally.
Do they have to start all on the same day? Do you have like some sort of processing where it's like going to boot camp or something? Because that's a lot of people to process and keep the culture correct.
What we did really nicely, I think, is to keep as we grew. Keep thinking about the infrastructure. So obviously there is the technology infrastructure, but also the organizational infrastructure. So for example, we have TripActions University. It's 2.5 days that every employee goes through when they join TripActions. So we are synchronizing them to come in the same time. Even globally, they all come and flying to Palo Alto to participate in this university. Now, once they are passing this university, then they have the training in their teams. So if you think about support, we have a really big call center, one in Dallas, the other one in Amsterdam. So all of them are actually going under 3 weeks of specific training for supporting TripActions. So there is a lot of thinking of training, onboarding.
And sending them to the home office so they really get to meet everybody and understand the culture.
It's critical. I've mentioned culture earlier, and it's really Elon and I are mainly doing startups because we want to build organizations that represent a culture that we believe in. So it's really the number one kind of guiding
What
principle.
is the culture? I mean, it's a B2B to C travel, enterprise travel, like you're not like starting a movie company or something super sexy and like a fashion brand. So what does culture mean in a B2B company?
Yeah, I think you've mentioned earlier companies like Google and Expedia that are playing in this space. In fact, we are playing in a different space. There are the consumer travel solutions, and we are actually usually partnering with them. So we have very strong partnership with Expedia, with Booking.com, with C-Trip, right? All of the consumer market players. But we are competing with American Express, Carlson Wagon Lead, BCD, agencies that were created in the previous century to do corporate travel. So we are replacing them. And people that are coming to TripActions are extremely mission driven, which is really a definition of our culture. They truly believe that they have to replace TripActions with the solutions that I've mentioned earlier. So it's critical for us. Being mission driven means that you'll wake up in the morning and do your best to do whatever it takes, right, to be successful, to support our users. And it brings to something that I think it's a huge definition of our culture, which is also part of our values. We're saying that it's all about the users all the time and all of them. And I mean it, for corporate travel, you have the road warriors that are traveling. You have the executive assistants that are booking trips. You have administrators of the program. You have the finance team. We take care of all of them through the product and also through the service. And this is really, if you're mission driven and you always think about the user, it's pretty much a good definition of our culture.
Were you influenced by Tony Hsieh and Zappos and Delivering Happiness? It sounds familiar to me, like he really seemed to have nailed it with that book. I'm assuming you've read it.
I read it, and I think it's extremely inspiring, but it's interesting. If you take Zappos and you also take Amazon, I think both of them mastered a different thing, but eventually if you can combine the two, you can create really good service. One, obviously, it's all about service. The other, efficiency, is really important. If you want to create a long-term, really good service, you also need to be very, very efficient. And I think we've managed to do both, which obviously impact unit economics and stuff like that.
How do you save people time, or do you save people money? Like, what is the driving force behind this? Because it does seem to me, when I look at all these different platforms, and I'm like a power traveler where I just open up 50 windows and I have every single service and I'm double checking. It seems like everybody has the same price within $10. And I just go with booking directly from the airlines because that seems to give you the best service. Am I correct that that's the best way to do it, as opposed to going through an intermediary like Expedia?
Yeah, so it's slightly different. We're actually saving both. We are saving time for the employee. So I'll just give you a statistics, which is really important. It takes 6 minutes to book the entire business trip through us, and business trip tends to be complex. So this is 6 minutes in average. We're going to support you in less than a minute. If you're going to contact us, usually through a chat that appears everywhere in our app, it will take us less than a minute to support you. And you're going to usually give us more than 95% satisfaction. So all of these are around productivity, around the user's satisfaction. Companies that are using us are in average saving up to 30% on their entire travel budget. And the reason that they do that, once we are getting all of these users using us, then we're applying a lot of mechanisms to help them to save company money. So, for example, we tell them when it comes to hotels, and we use a lot of machine learning for that, that's the best hotel for you at these dates, at this location, for your company, right? Given what your company want to spend. When it comes to airlines, it's slightly different. People are very, very loyal to the airlines that they are using.
Because they want the points. And they want to have the status to get boarded first.
It's a lot of things, right? You have the hubs that you're using, so the airports that you're using, which is really important.
Yeah, if you're in California, you're probably really into Alaskan and Southwest.
Right.
But if you're in the Northeast, is it Delta mostly or United?
It's exactly that. So SFO is a huge United hub, right? While Atlanta is a pretty big hub for Delta.
Right.
If you're flying from Texas, it's pretty much from Dallas, it's American Airlines, right? And it's kind of, so people are very loyal to their airlines. Points is part of this. How fast can you get on the airplane? Right. Is part of this. All of these things. But there you can really communicate to the employees, hey, that's what your company is willing to spend in order of flying you around, right? You can take a premium economy, you can take business class, you can only take a coach, right? All of these things are super important. So when you do all of these things, two things are happening. The users are super productive and therefore happy, and the company is saving a lot of money.
I'll give you my greatest hack ever. And then I want you to think about a travel hack.
Okay.
This travel hack no longer works. But a friend of mine who is not me, you understand what I'm saying here, Ariel?
Yeah.
Used to love to fly Virgin America, which no longer exists. Alaska Airlines bought it, right?
Right.
Turned out when you were a gold member, you could 24 hours out upgrade from coach to business.
Okay.
But if you're a gold member, it's 100% refundable. But sometimes the 8 seats up front would be booked.
Okay.
What my friend would do, and this friend is not me, they would book a coach seat and a first class seat. One for, say, their wife. But then their wife would cancel her seat at 24 hours and 2 minutes. And the husband would upgrade his coach seat for $100 to go cross country at 24 minutes and 1 second.
Okay.
Now, you have some of these tricks. I know you have them.
We don't.
You don't. You must have some travel hacks. You don't?
Me personally
Yes,
or in the
you
app?
personally.
Oh.
But wait, tell me a great travel hack. And then the other question I want you to answer is, why don't we board these planes from the back row forward anymore when we get back on This Week in Startups? Because this is making me crazy. You need to keep track of your finances. Your accounting needs to be perfect. This is table stakes here. You're not going to raise money from angel investors, seed funds, or venture capitalists unless your books are perfect. Well, Pilot is a bookkeeping company that focuses exclusively on startups. That's right. They handle everything for you and they get it perfect. You get a dedicated account manager who takes care of your books, obviously, and they send you an accurate, detailed financial report every month. So when you're talking to your investors, potential investors, past investors, and your management team, you're not guessing and you don't look like you're sloppy. Everything is tight, and that is so right. Pilot bookkeepers are assisted by engineers that automate the most error-prone parts of the work. So your books are always incredibly accurate, and that's what you want. You need them to be accurate. Pilot does all of this on an accrual basis. If you don't know what accrual-based bookkeeping is, you can look it up online, but basically it's the way all businesses are expected to professionally work. Not cash-based, but accrual-based. And they do it in QuickBooks Online, so you're never locked in to a proprietary platform. So stop. Stop spending your time tracking financial statements and making cash flow spreadsheets. It's a waste of time. Use Pilot, and the first 100 listeners right now are going to get 20% off Pilot Core for 6 months. Just go to pilot.com/twist, pilot.com/twist. The product is trusted by Airtable, Lattice, Scale, OpenAI, ClearBrain, Winnie, Nimble. I'm an investor in some of these. Mixergy, lots of great companies out there using Pilot. Add Pilot to your financial stack and get back to doing what you do best, running your business. Again, first 100 listeners get 20% off Pilot Core for 6 months at pilot, pilot.com/twist. Nice domain name. Woo, I got a little domain name envy there. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. Welcome back to This Week in Startups. Business travel, TripActions, crushing it. $154 million, Series C. Incredible. Congratulations. And growing at an alarming pace, but trying to maintain that culture. Super important. And doing those 2.5 days in the university. Hey, if somebody, do you give people the $1,000 to quit like Tony Hsieh does?
We don't.
You don't,
yeah. We
I
have
thought that
other
was
things.
crazy.
I'll tell you what we do, and that's part of being mission-driven.
Yeah.
Every employee in TripActions get every year the ability to book through TripActions $2,000 of a personal trip. And what it gives us is the ability of our employees to feel like the travelers, to get our support, to use the app, and so on, which is really, really important.
Wait, you give it to them every year or once a
year?
Once a year.
Yeah.
They get to take a $2,000 trip?
Yeah.
That's a great perk.
Yes.
But they have to book it through the app.
They have to book it through the app. They have to use TripActions. They have to experience. And by the way, a lot of times they're coming with great ideas. Hey, that's what I've experienced around, for example, notifications, right? And here is my idea. So it's really about having them experiencing, which gets back to the mission-driven culture, experiencing what we do, and then have the belief that everybody has to use it.
I am going crazy about the boarding of planes. It used to be pretty straightforward. First class got on, or business class, whatever.
Right.
Then coach would get on, and they would get on from row 50 to row 20. So the people would go to the back and put their bags on. Now, there's like 4 different statuses, 4 different groups, and it's chaos getting on and off flights now because everybody is bringing a carry-on roller and not checking because they charge you to check. And now it's chaos. Why is this happening in the industry? Why have they forsaken us and not gone with efficiency?
I'll tell you what I think. Actually, 4 years ago when we started TripActions, I didn't know anything about the industry, right? So I was not familiar with the infrastructure, which is very complex. I was not familiar with the economics of airlines, right? And how airport works and all of this. And by the way, I'm not familiar with a lot of this is very complex. I think that it's a very tough and complex industry, which I've learned actually in the last 4 years to respect. So I would be the last person to advise anybody on, how do you board people in the fastest way possible on an airplane?
I looked it up and they said in their test, random was actually the best, which I thought was bizarre. They said randomly boarded flights would do better. But it turns out what they're trying to do is, because they're trying to charge people for the extra bag, that's causing more people to bring rollers on. More people are bringing rollers on, which is causing more gate checking. And so it's causing chaos now. And flights are becoming late. And just anecdotally, getting on and off flights is just chaos now.
I never actually, was thinking about that. I can tell you what we do, which I think it's interesting. We invented this way to book your flights. We call it next generation of shopping experience. We actually developed it with the airlines, with Delta, United, American Airlines, Lufthansa, and so on. And what it was designed to do, it basically shows you all of the choice inside an airplane, right? We call it a shelf, right? So it could be from basic economy to through premium to business class. But what we were doing, to your point about flight delays and stuff like that, we're communicating everything to you, the user, that is relevant for you about this flight. Can you bring a carry-on or not for this class? Can you cancel this flight or not? What's the statistics, right, of this specific flight
in route.
Terms of
and
this route and so on? So what kind of services? We can even tell you, hey, there is Netflix on this flight.
You said before you came to this with no knowledge of the industry, literally zero knowledge.
Zero knowledge.
So, and now you've built a unicorn. Unpack that for me. How did you, with no knowledge, did you hire somebody who was really smart about it? Or did you just start your own investigation and rapidly put fresh eyes on the problem?
It's, first of all, we knew the problem from a user's perspective. So we were definitely road warriors. I was on airplanes and hotels all the time. I'll just give you a fun story. I'm sure that you like it. I was flying a lot, and one day I found myself in Odessa, Ukraine, in the middle of the night, arriving to the hotel, and guess what? They cannot find my booking, right? And the hotel is fully booked. So what do you do now, right? I don't know the language. It's very cold outside. What do you do, right? So as a road warrior, you start to learn to, I was walking down the street with my luggage and eventually found an hotel. But you always have these things that are happening to you in business travel. So I was very familiar, the same as my co-founder, with the actual problem of how hard it is to book your trip and to support yourself. That was the thing that we knew. We didn't know the infrastructure, right? We didn't know how fulfillment, how do you buy flight tickets, how do you buy hotels, how to partner, right? We didn't know all of these things. And then it was a combination of, first of all, learn, by talking with a lot of people. I've started like early days. I started to reach out to people through LinkedIn and just tell them, hey, would you have lunch with me? We are trying to build this startup. And I would meet with people. Part of them look at, this thing that you can see in their eyes that they think that you are crazy because you're telling them, hey, we're going to reinvent business travel while they speak with you and clearly you don't know anything. Over time, we've learned more and more. And I think we did it because on one side, we were really ready to challenge a lot of the things, definitely around the infrastructure, but we also respected the industry. And you asked me earlier about boarding people on airplanes.
Yeah.
And I've told you, I actually learned to respect this industry. There are a lot of reasons to do something in this industry. So I think the combination of fresh eyes, fresh perspective, not knowing anything, with reaching out to people and respecting them actually led to what we have today.
I don't think Uber could have done what they did if they were from the taxi industry. They would have had too much baggage to actually figure out like what needed to happen in order to make it work. When it comes to hotels, why is there such a giant commission and such variability on hotel prices, and there's not on flights? Because flights are just, I always seem to get the exact same price, and then when I do hotels, the prices seem radically different based on what platform I go to or based on if I'm a member or not.
Yeah, by the way, just to make a comment about not coming from the industry and fresh eyes, one of our investors, Oren Ziv, that's actually his investment criteria. So he is looking, when it's big disruption, he is looking for people that are actually not from the industry because he has this belief that they have the chance to really look at the industry from a different perspective.
Right.
And then, with experience, you team up and reach out to the industry and learn.
Yeah.
When it comes to economics in the industry, I think, look, the hotels business and the airlines business are eventually serving a trip, but they are completely different businesses, right? Hotels is much more fragmented business.
That's what it is. It's the fragmentation.
Exactly.
Right?
And airlines is a completely different business. And also the cost structure around airlines is completely different.
Yeah. It is confounding the pricing of airlines too, when I'll look at this new thing with Google Flights. You can check off a box that says keep sending you like updates when the prices change. And it's crazy. Like it'll be $7,000 for a business class ticket to Sydney, and then it'll go down to $5,000 and then back up to $8,000. And I'm like, why is it changing so frequently? Do you know the answer to that question?
I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
I know that more of as a travel agency, which eventually that's what we are.
Yeah.
We are very effective of dealing with that because obviously it creates a challenge when you present something, right, to the user. The user wants you to keep this price for them and so on. And there are a lot of startups out there that are doing cool things around trying to forecast price changes, trying to ensure a certain price and so on. I think these things are less common in business travel. They are more common in consumer travel because in business travel, the sensitivity is first of all for efficiency and then the price. I think consumer travel is a combination of price and leisure, basically what you're going to get with this package. That's why you see a lot of packages.
Yeah.
So it's very, very different. Business travel historically is more about efficiency. What is the most efficient way to eventually bring me to a meeting, right? Eventually, think about it. We are sitting here face to face.
It's totally different.
For a reason. It's totally different. So you could call me, right? And we could do the same thing.
Yeah.
But it would be terrible.
Yeah,
so
you
this
lose
face
the
to face,
whole...
exactly. The face to face is critical.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what we do.
All right. One more question about. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, yes, your ability to raise money from the same person. So you sold your first company to Jive, right? Stream One got sold to Jive?
Yeah, to Jive, yeah.
Or maybe Stream One. That might have been your second company.
That was my first. Stream One got acquired by Jive. Yeah.
Okay. And then you had the same, Oren Zev was your investor there. What I want to know is, did you actually go to market and find other investors, or did you just go to him and just close your funding immediately when we get back on This Week in Startups? Most of the wealth here in Silicon Valley is created by Equity, you know this. You want to get on that cap table. Salary, that's great. Salary's kind of a sucker's game. You want to get the equity. That's how you accumulate wealth. And all of the data about equity gets stored in one secret location. It's called a cap table, a capitalization table. This lets people know how many options they have in the company, when they can execute them, and at what price, for example. Cap tables are frequently broken. I know when we are doing cap table math, 2 or 3 times out of 10, we see a glaring error. And we have to then debate it with attorneys and with founders and other investors. Companies are still using spreadsheets and paper certificates. Can you imagine how insane that is? The cap table is where all the wealth is created. Can you imagine if Uber's cap table as a 70 or 80 or $90 billion company was wrong? What's 1% of $75 billion? A lot is the answer. And the best way to solve this problem and simplify everything is to just manage your equity with Carta. Carta is the industry standard, CARTA, and you get 20% off their cap table software and 409A valuations by going to carta.com/twist, CARTA.com/twist. More than 10,000 companies. That is not a typo. That is not a mistake. 10,000 companies and VC firms like Slack, Coinbase, Flexport, August Capital manage hundreds of billions of dollars in equity on Carta, including us. When you use this, your equity will be accurate and you'll get your valuations raised around. You can offer liquidity to people and stay compliant all the while. Do not mess around. Make your cap table perfect with Carta. Carta.com/twist. Use that code, please, and thank @Carta on the Twitter. Let's get back to this amazing episode. All right, welcome back to This Week in Startups. This week's unicorn, as it were, we've had about 20 unicorns on the podcast in 2019, is Ariel Cohen from TripActions, which has only been around for 4 years, but they're worth $1.1 billion, I think, after this latest fundraising from our friends over at Andreessen Horowitz. And Ben Horowitz is on the board.
Yeah.
Which he never does, right? Isn't he like, I thought those Ben and
He rarely
Mark don't go on boards anymore. They're kind of semi-retired, right? So was that something you demanded? You said, hey, if you want to make the investment, you have to be on the board?
No, not at all.
He offered?
So it's funny. First of all, I can tell you that Ben, you were talking about retiring. I can tell you that he's one of the hardest workers.
He's working hard? Okay, maybe Mark's
company.
retired.
I don't know. In our company.
Yeah.
And, people in TripActions, they saw it since he joined.
Yeah.
So definitely a lot of respect to him there. Yeah. We know both Ilan and I know Ben from our past. So we got acquired in through HP. And obviously, Opsware got acquired into HP. We met over there, so obviously there is the personal relationship.
So you knew him from that?
Yeah.
Very
there
cool.
was definitely no hey, we are only doing it if Ben is joining our board. I think that all of us thought that it would be an amazing experience to work together, and that's why we were doing that.
So back to the original question, since you had investors who had done well, I assume they did well from the last company?
Yeah.
They did good. Did you have to, as a second-time founder, actually go and do a roadshow and try to raise money, or did you just go to Oren and say, here's my next idea, and he gave you $1 million?
So actually, it's both. So Arif Jean Muhammad from Lightspeed and Oren invested in our previous startup. And they were our investors here from day one. Oren led the seed, Lightspeed joined, and then they switched. So we for quite some time have been working with Oren and Arif and Lightspeed. We did meet several investors when we've started, but I can tell you that our seed, we've managed to raise it in less than a week. So it was really, really fast. And it was fast because for us working with people that we know, and we trust, and it's a long journey. Yeah. And you need to
10 years at least. Yeah.
Exactly. And you're spending a lot of time with these people. You want to work with people that you like, that you trust. So you can actually see that all of our investors, including the recent round, are investors that we know personally, on a personal level, that I know that I can have drinks with, which is actually important.
It's amazing that, I always tell people, when you're a second-time founder and you've had an exit, you can raise money like so much more efficiently. You did it in a week, which is just crazy fast and lets you get back to work. Hey, what is it about, you're Israeli, I take it?
Yeah.
What is it about Israeli founders where they over-index in terms of startups and successful startups? I mean, we have had, like I said, 20 unicorn founders on this year, maybe, and 3 of them are from Israel, which is a country of 5 million?
I
6?
think 8 million.
Oh, it's up to
people.
8?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
you guys are doing okay over there. Why does it over-index so highly in your mind? Are a lot of your peers founders as well? Why is it so entrepreneurial?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it was interesting. I read over the weekend that Forbes did this thing about like immigrants and how many of them, built unicorns in the US. And it's actually, I was surprised to see that Israel and Canada were ranked as number 1. Mm-hmm. Which obviously Israel being a small country, it's interesting. Yeah. I think first of all, Israel is a young country, right? And you have a lot of young people there. And you definitely have a lot of opportunities to innovate over there. And the majority of the economy in Israel is tech. So in a lot of ways, you are kind of, you go out of high school, first to the army, and only then to university.
2 years?
3, actually.
3 now?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think it's...
Required service.
Yeah. So I think it's part of this.
You were in the Air Force?
Culture. No, not at all. I was actually a tank commander.
A tank?
Yeah.
Did you ever fire a tank?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How many times do they let you fire that? Like, isn't that expensive to fire a tank?
Did
you get to fire it like all the time, like in practice, or no?
What do you mean? Oh, there are a lot of ways to simulate this and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. So you get trained in a simulator.
Yeah, both. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you drive the tank, or were you?
You do everything. Like as a tank commander.
What kind of tank were you guys driving?
A very old one. It's like a kind of a
Russian one, or American?
No, of a U.S. tank.
Oh wow. Yeah. That's amazing. You were a tank commander.
Yeah,
wow.
It's crazy.
I used to play Tank Command on my Atari, but I never
now give up my age. That was more than 20 years ago. So, you know.
Did you see any action? Have you been in
a little bit, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You've been in a combat situation?
No, not serious ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, yeah.
You've had people throw things at the tank?
Not really. No.
It is pretty amazing to me, the over-indexing right now of Israeli founders, and it makes you wonder about this sort of immigration issue, where we really need to let great founders into the country. You guys are going international now. How many offices do you have? And
we have 9 offices.
Wow.
We have offices obviously here in the US, in Dallas and New York, but we also have an office in London. We have a pretty big team in Amsterdam. We have a team in Sydney, Australia. And
Sydney's great. Have you been?
Yeah, and I'm actually flying out next week.
Are you really? I'm going in June for Launch Festival. It's amazing. What a great city.
Yeah, it is.
If you look at the rankings of the best cities to live in the world, Australia has like 5 of the top 20.
I'm not surprised.
Every city there is like low crime, high functioning, like the opposite of San Francisco.
Right. Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's I love Amsterdam. I'm going there a lot. I really like this city.
Yeah.
San Francisco is a fun city, but
the crime here is not exactly where it needs to be.
Yeah.
It's not high functioning. Well, listen, continued success with it. Congratulations on the high growth, and thank you for sharing your strategies for keeping it on the rails. Is this pace going to keep up, you think, or?
Oh, yeah. We are, it's a really big industry. People are spending $1.5 trillion a year on business travel.
Yeah. You have 1,000 customers now or something like that?
We have 2,000 customers.
2,000.
Yeah.
And each of those represents how many travelers, do you think?
It depends. It's different segments. We sell to mid-market SMBs, enterprises. WeWork is a customer, Lyft, Slack.
Oh, wow. So you got all the... Yeah, I see you had Robinhood, one of my investments.
Yeah.
No Uber?
Customer.
Uber's not a customer?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. That's why you like Lyft as an example. Right, we'll have to get you into Uber next.
Good idea.
Well, listen, continued success with it. Congratulations on the round.
Thank you.
Keep it on the rails. Don't go too fast.
You
got the brakes on the cars, though. You got the alignment right, it seems.
Exactly.
A lot of people go too fast, right?
I think, the way it's funny that you're bringing up the car analogy, we're really imagining this as like, this red line in the car.
Yeah.
You want to push the engine there because you want to see how fast can you grow.
Right.
But you also need to look at the engine. And that's what I meant earlier when I was talking about these 2 metrics that we care a lot about.
Yeah, you don't want the engine to explode.
Exactly.
Yeah, or seize up, right? You want to push it, but not so much that it breaks. And you have a big cushion now. You have plenty of cash. You can make mistakes. It's a lot of responsibility, though. So this kind of revenue, you got to be thinking about the public markets. How do you think about IPOs and public markets? Are you guys halfway there, 2/3 of the way there?
Yeah, we are, our focus is to bring TripActions to as many people as we can and to really build a long-lasting business. So, of course, it goes through an IPO, but when and how, it's really not our focus right now. Our focus is really building TripActions.
You need another 2 years, maybe.
I really don't know.
Yeah, it used to be 6 years, right? When we were coming up in the industries, companies used to go year 6 or 7. Now it's like years 9 and 10. It used to be like 6 or 7 years they would go public, 5, 6, 7. And Lotus 1, 2, 3 went public in year 3, year 2 or 3. Now Uber year 10 or 9 or 10. Everything's taking more time.
Because you can build really big businesses today, right?
Yeah.
I think part of this is the ability, to build something in the size of Uber or Lyft, in the size of WeWork, in the sizes that we are planning.
A couple of billion in revenue.
Yeah.
Not just $1 billion valuation, but $1 billion in revenue. That's kind of the goal now. What do you think of this long-term stock exchange? Have you heard about that? The Eric Ries's long-term stock exchange?
Yeah.
What do you think of this?
I don't know. I'm actually really focusing on, seriously on building TripActions. It's a really good idea.
They're basically going to give voting rights.
Right.
I think the voting rights for the company and the price you pay for your shares will be based upon how long you hold it for. So let's say, Andreessen Horowitz is committing to hold their shares for at least 10 years.
Right.
They might get 10 votes. But if I say I'm going to hold my shares for 5, I get 5 votes per share. Right. And then if somebody's like, I just want to buy in the open market, then maybe they get 1 vote. Right. They're not making any commitment. Or if you had an IPO, you could say to one group of people, you pay $1 a share, you hold it for a minimum of 5 years. You pay $2 a share, you don't have to hold it for 5 years. Right. So you can actually start to incentivize a yearly cadence as opposed to this crazy quarterly up and down. Right. And they just got approved to actually launch the stock market. So I don't know how long that's going to take, but I think that could be super interesting for Silicon Valley because there's this big fear of going public because of the quarterly results problem as opposed to a yearly look at the business.
I think that any mechanism that creates good alignment between the long-term vision of a company and the employees and the founders, which eventually results in a really good service, really good product to the customers, is a good one. So, of course, looking at things from a more of a long-term perspective, and then to basically, to your point, compensate for that. I think it's great. It's actually how startups work, right? You work with investors for a long time. We've just talked about us working with the same investors for two different startups. Yeah. But a lot of your employees at the beginning are coming from your old startups and from your old life, right? So I think the idea of people teaming up for a longer term to build a business, to build a service, to build a product, I love it.
Yeah. What have you learned about product?
Product?
Yeah, like you said you're a product guy. When you think if you were making your playbook and you were advising your younger self, hey, younger self, here's what you need to focus on for product, what would you tell your younger self?
It's interesting. I can tell you that a lot of TripActions are lessons from our previous startup around the product. So obviously, product market fit is super, super important. And I think that when you're not that aware of this, you're usually building products that you came up with. Like you have this idea, hey, it would be super cool to do something. I think that what I've learned that you always need to ask what exactly this product solves, and is there a market for this product? I think that asking this question really early at TripActions helped us to be in the stage that we are at right now, and that's a huge difference from our previous startups. So I think always looking for a product market fit in big market, really, really important.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If you are a business and you travel for business, go check out TripActions.com. You have the .com, right? I assume TripActions.com. And I'm assuming you're hiring since you've added 600 people in the last year. So I'm going to go ahead and say Ariel at TripActions.com if you're like a developer might work. Or there might be TripActions.com/jobs.
We have it all. Go to our website and you'll find us.
You hire people to work from home, customer support agents, or you put them in an office?
We try to have most of them in our offices at this stage, but we do have some remote employees.
Yeah, I thought that was... I met Dave Nealman, the guy who started JetBlue decades ago, and he hired a bunch of folks in Salt Lake City because everybody was outsourcing to India.
Right.
and call times were a half hour or 20 minutes when you were traveling. And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to hire a call center. I'm going to hire stay-at-home moms and dads in Salt Lake City, and they can take as much time on the phone as they want. So JetBlue just had this like under a minute call time. And what they would do is if the call time got longer, they had a system that automatically emailed and texted people and said, hey, we need more agents. If you'd like to come on right now, there's more work. It was almost the gig economy before the gig economy. And he said if it got really busy, they would send people an alert with surge pricing. Basically, hey, we're paying time and a half for the next 4 hours on a Saturday night because we need a couple more agents. And then 3 or 4 people would be able to come online. And they were able to like balance it real time. That's the majority of your people, these customer support people, I take it. Yeah.
It's pretty much everywhere. We have a lot of salespeople, support, marketing, actually pretty much across the board. We are going as fast as we can in all of the various areas.
Crazy.
But, to your point about support and JetBlue, what we are doing to be very efficient with support is to invest a lot in the technology there.
Yeah.
And you can do a lot of things with machine learning today that basically enables you to come and tell the agents, the support agents, hey, this is what you actually need to recommend for a traveler when, for example, you want to change their flights or their hotels. So there are different ways, I think, today that are super efficient to create really good service. Maintain low answering times, very high satisfaction, and so on. And that's actually what we do. That's mainly how we grow, because obviously you cannot hire 20% support agents every month.
No.
So the point is being efficient and maintaining really high
People
quality.
love chat. They love like people hate the phone, and they love chat. What's the breakdown now? Half the people want to use chat?
80% of the people that are contacting us are doing it through chat, and half of them are doing it through our mobile app. So we have a web app, mobile app.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that most of our support is done through mobile via chat, and chat is a huge going forward use case for us, because you can do a lot of things today, including selecting your flights, changes,
you can prompt
payments.
them.
You can do a lot of things.
Yeah.
So that's really a huge growing use case for us.
Yeah, you could in the chat say, do you want option A, B, or C?
Exactly.
And they can just pick.
It's exactly that.
And you're done, which is what happens in Asia right now. People don't have the chat interface here for commerce, but it's become kind of the standard, right, with WeChat and some of the other services in Asia.
I think WeChat, Ctrip, you look at these apps, are super inspiring.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned earlier that we have a relationship with Ctrip. Really cool to see how their app operates, eventually to book a trip in a really efficient way. The same as WeChat and the various apps that you have there. I think there is a lot of things that are relevant in our context.
Yeah. All right. We'll continue success, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.